Welcome to Unlimited Parenting, where we discuss parenting children with disabilities or special healthcare needs. My name is Allison, and today I am joined by everyone's favorite, Melissa.
Hey, is that a real thing?
That's feedback I've received.
You're so lame. I wish. Please, someone.
Please, someone send in that feedback. I'm just kidding. And today we are here to record another installment of IPUL, found it on Facebook.
Okay.
This is the second episode of that series. So if you missed the first, they are not in any way chronological or connected, but you're welcome to go back and listen to it because they are covering different questions. So if you missed the first episode, just a little backstory is I was on Facebook.
Weird. You need to went from TikTok.
I'm very old. And I was noticing that there are lots of questions that get asked in a lot of groups, whether they're diagnosis-specific groups or just Treasure Valley groups, statewide groups. There's a lot of questions that get asked. And sometimes there's not a lot of answers. Sometimes there are a lot of answers. And I thought, what if we took some of those questions, we researched them to the end of the world, and then we came back and presented a fully reviewed answer to some of those questions.
Love it.
So that's what we've done.
Cool.
Today we have 4 questions, and
I'm laughing because she said 4 questions, but the amount of paperwork that is before us. Sorry, it looks like more than 4 questions.
Listen, I researched it a lot.
When she says she is researching this to the depths of the internet and back, she's serious.
And if you're curious about where I found this information, I would be happy to link it and or provide it to you. So I've saved the receipts.
Good deal. I'm sure.
Just in case you wanted to know more. Okay, so question number 1.
Okay.
And for this question in specific, it will be a lot of me kind of explaining, but then I would like to hear your family perspective on this first question.
Okay.
It is, what is ESY and how is a student eligible for it? So let's first begin by explaining that ESY is extended school year.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here we go. ESY is the principle that each student with a disability is, in fact, entitled to an individually designed education established in a series of court cases that led to the adaptation in 1975 of the federal law that we now know as IDEA, right? The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Basically, what I'm saying here is that there's been a lot to get to where we are right now. So if you remember nothing from the words that come out of my mouth next, please remember that this didn't happen overnight. A subsequent series of court cases and policy clarifications established providing special education services beyond the usual school year is a part of FAPE, which is the free and appropriate public education. Everybody deserves one. Everybody gets one. These decisions have prescribed the basic requirements for the ESY program eligibility and defined some of the related extended school year elements, such as the length and type of the program, funding, and transportation. In addition to all of that, the Office of Civil Rights of the Department of Education ruled that even students regarded as disabled under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act and not eligible for services under IDEA have to be considered for ESY services. So I'll allow a pause for that to blow your mind for a second. Okay, mind blown?
The wow that came out of, like, my head is that emoji right now.
A letter of finding issued by OCR to the Baltimore City Public Schools, again, I recognize that this is not Idaho, but it still sets a precedent, right? States that Section 504 regulations require that the individual needs of every child be examined, considered, and met. While 180 days of school may be adequate for some, again, this is not my word, and this is from a letter from a while ago, so this is not current zeitgeist, but for some handicapped students, it may not be an adequate amount of time for others. So eligibility for extended school year services at no cost to the parent is determined by the child's team. Okay, so buckle up for another one.
Okay.
Because there's a whole lot of work that went into extended school year. So if nothing, maybe this just gives you a greater appreciation for extended school year. So Royce versus Fontaine in December 29, 1994, the court noted that emerging skills and quote unquote breakthrough opportunities. So that's like when a child is on the brink of learning how to read, right? Can and should be incorporated into the eligibility analysis for extended school year. The child is in a critical stage of developing a skill which has great potential for increasing his or her self-sufficiency. If such a skill is not completely acquired and mastered, it is likely that that skill will be lost due to the interruption of summer vacation. That decision of the U.S. Supreme Court in Maryland, again, Maryland, wow, prescribed very, very specific requirements relative to the ESY procedures. The court found that the explanation about extended school year contained a brochure that got distributed to all students and that was not sufficient and ordered additional explanation be provided to all parents. The court in that decision also ordered that the student's eligibility for extended school year be considered at each annual review meeting, because at this point it had not been, right? Okay. And the parents sign a form acknowledging that they received this information. Okay. So, quick recap. IDEA has been around decades.
Long time.
But extended school year was kind of more of a conversation starting
like
1994.
Wow.
Right? The district must document the decision and the discussion reached for consideration of ESY. So that's something that you might have noticed when you are looking at your IEP. Was extended school year discussed? Was it determined necessary? And now that looks like a checkbox. And part of that is in thanks to this decision in 1994.
Interesting.
Here's another one.
Okay.
A number of federal courts, I'm talking my boys Johnson v. Bixby, Federal Circuit Court in 1990. And get this one, Battle versus Pennsylvania. That sounds like a UHC fight.
It does.
Or UFC?
Sure.
Anyway, tell us in the comments. Which is the third federal circuit court.
WWE? I don't know.
Can you smell what Bixby is cooking? Okay, that last one is 1980, sorry. Okay. Mentioned that one of the standards that needs to be considered in determining the need for extended school year is, and this might shock you, the ability of the parents to provide structure at home. The regression and recruitment issue will not be as severe. Thus, extended school year services through the school staff may not be necessary. So again, this is really emphasizing that the IEP is, in fact, don't be surprised, a team.
Sure.
So can the team provide those services, including the parents? So perhaps the parent feels, you know what, we're going to decline ESY. You may have been found eligible for it, but I feel like I can provide those supports in home.
Right.
Okay. Now, that is at the that's some federal level business, right?
Federal level.
Let's talk.
Okay.
What about the state of Idaho? What does the state of Idaho have to say about extended school year? Well, let me tell you. It's basically what you've already heard, that it's mandatory, and it is to provide, it's mandatory that it be assessed, right? Okay. Sorry. Provide special education and related services to an eligible student with a disability beyond the conventional number of instructional days, that 180 that we talked about earlier, and this is key, at no cost to the parents. It must be based on the IEP team decision that meets Idaho standards. The district shall provide extended school year services for students with disabilities who qualify right? The student's educational program is based on individual needs and not determined by what the program already has available in the district. That is straight from the special education manual. I'll repeat it again. The student's educational program is based on individual needs and is not determined by what programs are readily available within the district. Again, another very important statement coming up. A student cannot be required to fail or to go for an entire school year without extended school year services simply to prove a need. The IEP team shall consider the following. The term means special education and or related services that are provided beyond the regular school year. Now I feel like I'm at the end of that commercial when they're just trying to say, Ozempic can, and may result in blah, 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 blah.
I feel like say micro machines, but you're probably too young and you don't even remember that. So
I don't know what a micro machine.
Well, the micro machines, it was these little teeny, anyways, and the guy talked really fast.
Oh, my husband had those.
Yeah. He talked really fast. Okay. How old?
Okay, the goal of ESY at the end of the day is to assist students with disabilities with the emergence and maintenance of IEP goals addressed during the school year, right?
Right.
These goals can include independence, behavior, socialization, communication, academics, but it provides a different focus from general education summer school programs. So we're talking about emerging skills, regression recruitment, and self-sufficiency. Okay? Okay, one more thing I wanted to include. I don't want to bore you guys to absolute death, but I do have IDEA CFRs if you really wanted to go crazy and look up more about what IDEA in specific has to say about extended school year. And they are 300.106 and 300.20 through 300.324. If you want to go crazy, go crazy.
Out for your weekend extravaganza.
Exactly. So, full disclosure, I am not a parent of a child who qualifies for extended school year, but you are.
I am.
And I would like to hear more about if you chose to pursue extended school year or not.
Okay. So I will kind of way back up. We are, my son is going into the,
We're having a moment.
I just had a moment. He's going into the 9th grade. That means he's a freshman in high school.
That is disgusting.
Okay. He is eligible for ESY. He is eligible for extended school year. However, it's not something that we choose at this time to pursue and participate in. But backing way up, we did a couple times participate in ESY. When the first time we participated is when he had the emerging skill of walking. It was
talk about something that's important,
right? And so I'm like, absolutely, we're going to do this. We are going to do this. He had his cute little walker. His physical therapist had some really, really great goals that we were that we used to foster some independence. So he got himself this nifty little walker. He qualified in March for extended school year. The walker came in May, and a week later he started walking. So that was wonderful. So we used the entirety of the 6-week ESY session to focus on how he was going to maneuver and continuing to learn the school environment, the playground environment, because it was now a really new skill. It was no longer a skill that we were working on getting out, but now it was an emerging skill. And so he spent that entire 6 weeks working I don't want to say one-to-one with a physical therapist, but with some really, really individualized physical therapy goals. I will say that it was a little bit of a struggle because when he participated this particular year, it was at a school different than the school that he normally went to during, normal school, just whatever. And it was with a team that was different from his school team. So it was different paraprofessionals and a different lead special education teacher. The reason that this worked, though, the physical therapist was the same physical therapist that came from his traditional school.
Oh, so someone he knew.
So it worked, and he walked, and we never looked back. So that skill was not something that regressed. We emerged, and here we are so many years later. The next year, we had a very similar conversation with his team because we had just started, Reese is nonverbal, but uses a communication device. And we had just secured the communication device, a new system. And we're really trying to get that up and running with the team and everybody and get him on board. And it was an emerging skill that we didn't want to say, only us as a family worked on for the summer, right? We wanted everybody on the team to work with it. And again, we were at a different school with a different team, a different SPED teacher, and this time with a different speech pathologist. And it didn't work. This time it didn't work. Reese pushed back. It took us almost the entirety of the 6 weeks to get him really acclimated to new staff, to the new, and so we didn't see what we thought we would see from it, like we did the year before with the walking. And so from that point on, he still qualifies every year. We had the conversation in February of this year about, he has some emerging skills, communication still being one of those, and that would still qualify him. But it's not something that we at this time really pursue as a family. It's because the team is different and there's not consistency. And I know for my child, the consistency is key. And I want to give him a summer. I want to give him some time. So we kind of struggle with that a little bit. Like, is this intervention that he desperately needs? Or is this something, like you said in the open, right? That can be somewhat replicated in the home and that we don't have to worry about. I don't have to worry that he's not going to use the communication device when we go back to school. I know that we are still utilizing it, that these are still skills that we're working on. So yeah, that's where we are. Did I?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, and it's not to say that just because you're eligible for ESY 1 year, it doesn't mean you're going to be eligible the following year, right?
That's a really good point, because there's been a couple years where we weren't. Probably his later years, for one reason or another, he didn't have eligibility. I potentially could have pushed that if it was something that I felt strongly about, but I didn't. I don't know. I don't necessarily feel like we ever were in fear of losing anything where he wasn't found eligible for.
Before we close out on this, I want to give a few pointers on what extended school year is not.
Please do.
Extended school year is not mandated 12-month services for all students with disabilities.
Nope.
Just because you qualify for an IEP does not mean you automatically qualify for ESY. Extended school year is not required for the convenience of the school or parents, and therefore it cannot serve as a respite care service. It is not required or intended to maximize educational opportunities for any student with disabilities. Remember the recoupment emerging skills conversation.
And I would even venture to say that it's not super convenient for parents. It's it's a 6 week, and transportation is provided if that's something your child is eligible for, but it's just in the morning, and so you got to figure out how to maneuver around it. So absolutely, it's never intended for the convenience of a family or for babysitting services.
Right.
Yeah.
It is not necessary to continue instruction on previous year's IEP goals. Rather, the focus would be on those specific critical skills where regression due to an extended vacation may occur.
Yeah.
It's not to help students with disabilities advance in relation to their peers, like an IEP may be throughout the school year. It's not for those students with disabilities who exhibit regression, which is only related to medical problems resulting in degeneration or transitional life situations such as divorce or death of a family member. It is not required solely when a child fails to achieve IEP goals during the year. and it is not to provide a child with education beyond what is prescribed in his or her IEP.
Right.
So I hope I have left everyone with a very concrete explanation of what extended school year is and is not.
Yes.
Do you feel educated?
I do.
Okay, perfect. Hearing no further questions, I would like to move on to question number 2. And this one, I'm not sure. Please, if you have any feedback, feel free. But I'm not sure this is something that really
interests me.
No, I feel like that's wrong.
Oh, okay.
I don't feel like it's something that you've pursued.
Oh,
but if you've ever had a parent ask about it, please.
Oh, I know what you're
saying. Okay. The second question I found on Facebook is, what is neurofeedback therapy, and will Family Direct pay for it?
Did I put that in there? No, I'm just kidding. Because I don't know. You're right. I don't know much about it. So I'm going to learn right along.
Well, let me tell you.
All of you listeners.
I hope you're ready.
I am.
Before I even start, I want to say the following. IPUL is not endorsing neurofeedback therapy, and none of the staff at IPUL have received neurofeedback for themselves or their children.
That is correct.
I am going to state some facts that I have researched, and if I state an opinion, I will attribute it to the person who provided it.
Okay.
Thank you. Except right now, here's my opinion.
Well, you're attributing it to you.
I think it sounds kind of cool. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, now here we go. Neurofeedback is also referred to as EEG biofeedback, but since that's a mouthful, they say neurofeedback.
Which is not a mouthful.
Listen, you got to make some choices.
Yeah. I'm surprised it's not an acronym. I'm really just, in this world, everything.
NFB? Is that what the acronym would be? NFB?
Never mind. I'm glad it's not an acronym.
Okay, neurofeedback. Non-invasive, and is referred to as a learning modality that is designed to find and then retrain dysregulated brainwave patterns. In the simplest of terms, you can think of it as a guided exercise for your brain that is based on a psychological concept called operant conditioning. Now, I am going to pause and explain operant conditioning because I think it becomes important later. Operant conditioning was first coined by my guy, B.F. Skinner, who wanted to look at the external causes of human behavior. That word, operant, is used to refer to any active behavior that operates, get it? Operates on the environment to generate a consequence. So external behavior, not any kind of like intrinsic causes of behavior. Yeah. The word operant is used to refer to any active behavior that operates on the environment to generate a consequence. But please remember that in this instance, consequence is an ambivalent term, right? It could be positive, it could be negative, simply what happens as a result of this behavior. Are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still with you.
Okay. Actions that are followed by reinforcement will then, of course, be strengthened and more likely to continue again in the future, right? Okay. If I tell a funny story and then everybody laughs at me, I'm more likely to tell that story again or try to be funny again, right? Hence the child who repeatedly tells the same joke. In the future, the term operant is to refer to any active behavior that operates upon the environment to generate a consequence. Okay. Clear as mud? Perfect.
I told you guys she had a lot of papers.
Listen, I have so many papers, it's ridiculous. This is what is happening with neurofeedback. The system is rewarding your brain when your brain provides that pre-selected brainwave. So at this point, you may be asking yourself, how exactly is this working? So first, there are sensors that are connected to your brain. Again, non-invasive, not painful.
Just outside.
External. That monitors the brain's activity. While this is happening, the
EEG, guys.
Exactly, because that's why it's called EEG, biofeedback. So the sensors are connected to your brain, monitoring your brain's activity. I wish this was being videoed. while this is happening,
Lovely, you guys.
while all of this is happening, the computer is interpreting the signals that it's receiving.
Okay.
So if the brain is doing what we want it to do, then a reward is given. So let's take my child, for example. They love the show Gravity Falls.
So do I.
So while they're hooked up, they're watching Gravity Falls.
Okay.
Again, my children are not doing it. I'm just using this as a example.
But they're hooked up to electrodes.
They're watching
Mabel
Gravity
and-
Falls. Exactly.
Okay.
When their brain is producing the brainwave that we've selected that we want more of, the screen that they're watching may light up, providing that positive reinforcement. So they were always watching Gravity Falls, but it was darker. It was dipped.
Oh.
Until the brainwave that we've selected,
So why do we select that brainwave?
because that's the wave that we want to see more of, that we
Okay.
want to encourage,
Okay.
that helps us with other things.
Okay. And is that mapped out? Sorry.
Yes, no, that's
Okay.
selected in advance. So
Okay.
there's an initial session where they're like, wow, we're really low over here
Okay.
and we're really high up here. And we're looking to balance it out by doing this.
Interesting. Okay.
So
I just had to
no,
make it make sense. Okay.
please. When their brain is producing the brainwave that we want more of, the screen lights up. And that's the positive reinforcement to create more of that brainwave.
And then
Maybe in an alternate situation, the sound on Gravity Falls is off. And so when the brainwave that we want, the sound would turn on, right? So it could be audio,
Okay.
it could be visual. And hold on to your britches, because it could also be a vibrating chair. Now, from what I have learned, there are very few of these vibrating beds that are left. But what makes this super cool is with the chair concept is that reinforcement can be delivered even if the individual is asleep.
Oh.
Because if you produce that wave, they can still provide the feedback by vibrating the chair, even if you're asleep. This is just what I know.
Mm.
So the brain is now recognizing the reward and the consequence and responding with the changes. I also want to make something very clear. Neurofeedback, not new. This is not something that's just happened, right? It's been studied for the past 40 years. Okay. Dr. Duffy, a professor and pediatric neurologist at Harvard Medical School, is quoted as saying the following: neurofeedback should play a major therapeutic role in many difficult areas. In my opinion, if any medication had demonstrated such a wide spectrum of efficacy, it would be universally accepted and widely used. That's some high praise.
Absolutely.
That is some praise.
Probably exactly right. If this was a pill you could pop, everybody would want it.
Right? It's the Ozempic of...
Yeah.
Okay, so what is neurofeedback? Give me some diagnoses that neurofeedback could be used for. Pretend like you just asked me that question.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't trying to put it on
I'm dying. I know. I was like, I don't know. You're supposed to be telling me you found this. What are some diagnoses that could possibly use neurofeedback, Allison?
That's such a good question.
Thanks.
They could be diagnoses such as ADHD,
Okay.
panic attacks, autism, maybe you've had a stroke, headaches, anxiety, insomnia, post-traumatic stress disorder, learning disorders, TBI, etc.
Okay.
Now, from what I have gathered, the extensive research has been for individuals who have ADHD.
Okay.
I did not research to see if that 40 years applies to any of the other diagnoses.
Okay.
Just
And-
for clarification.
Never mind. You're going to say this probably, so I'll...
Well, hold on to your britches. Okay, now for the $1 million question. Is neurofeedback dangerous and or does it hurt?
Uh-huh.
I'm here to tell you that it's completely painless and again, non-invasive. It is marked as safe by the FDA. In fact, the FDA recognizes that neurofeedback has never produced a serious side effect since it was first discovered 40 years ago.
Okay.
But having said that, I also would like to say that I, in my research, have seen reports from parents that say that their child appeared tired after sessions. And they attribute that to mean that it was a good exercise. And that's what their providers have said that, wow, we really exercised the brain. So yes, they're tired. But I want to mention that that is what happened.
Okay.
So typically the next question at least in my mind, the next question would be, okay, how long are the sessions? How many do there need to be? Is this a forever?
Yeah. Is it you can cure or you can?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this is what I found. A typical session lasts between 30 and 50 minutes.
Okay.
And a typical treatment plan is roughly 20 sessions. Of course, some people need more, some people need less.
Okay.
Because the brain is neuroplastic, right? The changes appear to be permanent. The ultimate hope is that once the brain learns how and when to produce this certain brainwave, the ability to do so is natural and now inherently a part of like a permanent circuit in the brain.
Okay.
Because as I just mentioned, the brain is plastic. It can always learn and grow and change.
Wow.
Okay. I have a few other studies on neurofeedback that I would be happy to share. In the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of them, but if you want to know more, please feel free to reach out. So now that we've know about neurofeedback, let's get back to the second half of that question, which was, does FDS cover neurofeedback? There.
Oh,
It was so long ago.
Okay.
So first, FDS stands for Family Directed Services. Mm-hmm. And as we know, it is one of two pathways that can be taken in the Children's Developmental Disability Program. The other pathway being?
The traditional pathway.
Thank you. From my research, I have found that FDS will in fact cover neurofeedback, but if and only if your child is duly diagnosed with ADHD and is autistic. I do know that you can contact your case manager and they could potentially send you a list of individuals who have the required certification to provide.
Okay.
Neurofeedback. It's intensive hours. And of course, not just anybody can get the equipment and then provide neurofeedback, right? I also know that commonly once you've chosen your provider, they will give you an invoice, 20 to 52 sessions, right?
Okay.
That you can use for your support and spending plan, okay. SSP, right? In some cases, I have heard that the goods and service form was filled out by the OT, occupational therapist, or by the pediatrician, whomever is making this referral. Again, IPUL does not endorse or sponsor or want to advertise for any specific provider in our state.
Right.
However, a quick Google search does show that there are several providers in the Treasure Valley, in the Magic Valley, in the Idaho Falls area, and in Coeur d'Alene.
Okay. So
if you want more information, I would be happy to share it with you on a one-off basis. Please feel free to reach out. All right. How are we feeling? That's 2 questions down. We're halfway done.
Okay.
The other ones are going to be shorter, I promise. Okay. So question number 3. For those of you that are using FDS, what we just mentioned, Family Directed Services, what are some of the things that you use your budget for? So for those of you who don't know, when you've been found eligible, you will receive a budget. It could be $14,900. It could be
$8,200 is another.
And what's the other most common one? It's like $4,200, I think.
Yeah. There's 86, 42, I think. 42, 86, and 14.9, I believe are the budget levels. Yeah.
They stick around those areas.
Yeah.
So for starters, items and services that you would like to use require written recommendation from qualified professionals to be paid for.
Correct.
So let's give some examples. A pediatrician.
Oh, of a license, like a qualified.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So a pediatrician, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist,
a speech language pathologist, or potentially a psychologist.
Okay.
Those are some examples, right?
All of our therapy. Yeah.
The form must state that the items that you wish to purchase meet the following requirements. They must be safe and effective. They must meet standards of care. They must benefit the health, safety, and well-being of the child. They need to be the least costly option that reasonably meets the needs of that child, needed for the sole benefit of the child, and goods and services must also help the child to be in their community, increase community involvement for the child, increase independence of the child. All services requested must meet the child's needs. Again, they say it again. They must be related to the child's disability listed on the support and spending plan. The support and spending plan cannot pay for a provider when items that would serve as a substitute for that provider have been approved. All durable medical equipment, or DME, over $100 must first go through Medicaid DME.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now that we've said all of that, let's talk about some things that we can use our funds for. So I would love to hear from you, a fellow parent in the room, Miss Melissa. If you feel comfortable, would you mind sharing some things that you have used your son's budget for?
Yeah. Right now we use a lot of his budget for community support worker, to take him in the community, to work on goals, to work on getting him in the community, because that's something we're struggling with. However, in the past, we have used his budget to purchase goods and equipment that allow him to remain in his community or stay in his community with all of us. Probably my most favorite is his special needs bike trailer. So I mentioned earlier, he's going to be a freshman, which is crazy. And Reese is nonverbal. Reese has some mobility problems, but Reese loves to be outside, and we love to ride bikes, and we love to do that kind of stuff as a family. So when we realized like a trike wasn't going to be an option, or a self-propelled vehicle for Reese was not going to be.
You don't want to put him on a go-kart?
Reese would love that. Well, Reese would be in the wall, but he would have fun doing it. He needed to be in a big old bike trailer. So that was something that we got. It allows him to maintain his independence as much as possible within our community, his independence in the family. He can hang out in it. And so that's one of my most favorite purchases that we've ever made. And it was a big purchase, and it was a purchase that we kind of really had to budget for. We did. We budgeted his budget for it. Absolutely. Exactly. That's exactly what we did. We have purchased Spio suits, which are compression garments, I guess, compression type clothing for him that really benefited him in a couple different areas in which he needed that sensory support. So we've got those. We purchased one of the big pea pods for him, the big inflatable for him to essentially it was compression. You can see
he's a seeker.
See what he likes. Compression sheets we have purchased, swings, that kind of stuff. Another piece of equipment that we got that we did run through DME first, and then we did go through the budget when he was struggling with some motor and trunk control, a special tomato seating system that we had that went on a kitchen chair so that he was able to sit at the kitchen table and eat dinner with us, or at least
to be in his community.
To be in his community. Yeah, he wasn't eating dinner. He was being tube fed, but he was participating in the eating, the socialization of the eating. So that was really important that we were able to have a seating option for him that allowed him to be fed, as well as social in that area. So those are some of my favorite ones. I mean, we've bought different apps that support, a writing wizard app that really supports some fine motor. What else? Puzzles are always something that we get a great deal of enjoyment out of, just for his fine motor needs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that would be some of.
Thank you for sharing, because some of the things that you just listed are not already listed.
Okay, good.
So I would like to read to you from a list. And some of these are things that I have found on the Department of Health and Welfare's website.
Okay.
And some of these things are things that individuals from Facebook reported as using.
Okay.
By no means is this list exhaustive.
No.
And I just encourage you to reach out to your case manager, reach out to your support worker.
Yes.
Get the goods and service form from your occupational therapist, your physical therapist.
Fill it out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
So having said all of those caveats, here is the list. Respite care for sleep. I hired someone to sleep over on nights when I needed sleep. music therapy.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
I am choosing not to share the specific company's name, but just please know that there are a few because I don't want to make it seem like we're endorsing anyone. A sensory swing, you mentioned. Someone reported all of our hours go to the CSW, which is fair. And I think that I say that like that because that's something that you had already echoed.
That's where we are kind of right now. And I think that happens as kids get older.
Yeah. Someone actually mentioned neurofeedback, which I found very interesting.
Right.
Okay. Social stories, up to $150 a year.
Oh.
Kinetic sand, up to $50 a year. Essential oils. Sorry. Right. Kinetic sand could be dangerous. Yeah. Essential oils, up to $250 a year. Chewies, $100. Fidgets, $100. And compression items, 3 shirts and 3 socks annually.
Okay.
Aqua Ability at the YMCA accepts Family Direct. And again, this is very local to the Treasure Valley. Yeah. If that interests you, you can reach out to Andrea Parker. That's a specific name for you at Aqua Ability.
Yep.
Other things that I found. A pocket ramp for wheelchair accessibility. Adaptive trike and wheel replacement for that. So don't just think about the item in specific. Also think about the replacement. And additionally, when you're thinking about sensory swings, please also think about the equipment that you use to mount it or the stationary
hardware.
Thank you. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Sessions at the therapy place, which again is very local to the Treasure Valley. A weighted jacket. A weighted blanket, a bounce chair.
I forgot we've done all of those.
A goalie tablet. The goalie tablet. Again, remember, this is based off of your child's individual needs. So just because one child got it doesn't necessarily mean, so please keep that in mind. A crash pad, a trampoline, a body sock, a cozy canoe, which I think is that same pod thing.
Yep. Cozy canoe.
And then another thing that was local to the Treasure Valley that a lot of people recommended, and I'm not recommending this individual, but I just am sharing because a lot of people said this name, right? Swimming with Coog.
Oh.
Cougar is his name.
Okay.
And he does adaptive swimming lessons. And I felt like I would, and that's why I'm including it just at the end, but I felt like I would be remiss if I didn't include it because it literally was repeated over 43 times.
Wow.
I stopped counting at 43.
You're kidding.
So I guess...
Go Coog.
Go Coog. It seems like something that people really love.
Yeah.
So,
one thing I should say, and this has been a while ago, we did use our budget to do some minor home remodeling to make my son's bathroom more accessible for him. He was in our bathroom with a glass shower. It wasn't good. It wasn't a good fit. And we were able to utilize, it was a process, I will say that. But it is something that is doable, and you can utilize your budget for minor home modification. So, we modified our shower from a 3x3 stall shower to a more open shower that he was able to get in, and we were able to bathe him. So that is another option too that I think sometimes gets kind of forgotten. Yeah.
And another thing that you just reminded me of that I know that you can speak to more than I can are like motion sensors or water sensors.
Yeah. So you can. That is, now I don't know about some of the subscription services that those require. You would really have to talk to your support broker about those. That's something that we did. We pay for because it's something that we felt very adamant about. But we do have water sensors that we're paid through from Family Direct. But the subscription fee we pay.
And then the other thing that I saw a lot was Angel Sense. Is that a subscription, or do you know?
I don't know.
I can't believe I didn't research that.
I believe it is a subscription.
Okay.
Because it is the elopement. It's right.
Yes, it's the watch.
It's the watch. I am 99% sure that's a subscription.
So someone had mentioned that was paid for. So again, please talk to your support broker.
I know that is. I don't know how you do it. I guess I would say. I don't know how you fill out that paperwork for subscriptions. Your support brokers know how to do
Exactly.
that. So I know it's something that families have gotten covered. It's just not something that we pursued, but we do have, you mentioned the alarms on windows too. We do have those. And yeah.
So one more thing that I want to echo before we move on is that this is for community, so it can't be educational. So we're not talking tutoring.
Nope.
But there is something called the Empowering Parents Grant, which offers $1,000, a maximum of $1,000 per child that can support educational needs in the community, including tutoring. So there may be some other options available to you.
And that's for all students. So
yes,
make sure that all students are participating in that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The final question.
Okay.
It says, talk to me. I don't want to repeat exactly word for word what this person's question is, but essentially what it boils down to is this individual has an autistic child and they really, really want to be a police officer.
Oh, okay.
And we know that, locations can't discriminate, but is it going to be like prohibitive can they be a police officer? Can they be an EMT? Can they be a firefighter?
Right. Because you do hear that. I think there's been that blanket statement made. I know that I've heard it, like autism disqualifies you from the military. I think you've done some research on this though. And I think that's not necessarily true. And I guess we should just say every individual is an individual, right? And their diagnosis or disability is individual.
Exactly. 100%. So
I think you're going to give us the
I'm not going to read you
okay,
word for word everything that was said, but I want you to know that I reached out to some very kind people at the Idaho State Police, and I gave them the rundown on this question, and they were very kind, and they said we do not disqualify anyone from employment based on any kind of diagnosis, which obviously I would hope that they would say, right?
They have to say that.
Each of our job classifications have minimum qualifications that every applicant has to meet.
Right.
For trooper specifically, which is the one that I asked about, they must meet the entrance requirements. Okay. Be a citizen of the United States.
Okay.
Be a graduate of a high school or have a GED equivalent.
Okay.
Be a minimum of 21. Have a valid driver's license. They're going to be fingerprinted, right?
Yeah.
Must successfully complete a polygraph. Pass their drug policy requirements, meet the ISP's medical, vision, hearing, psychological, and physical fitness requirements. And then there's an advanced training course. If an applicant can successfully meet these qualifications, they would be considered for employment. Each applicant is required to pass an oral board evaluation, extensive physical, and complete the educational and continuing 22-week advanced training class. So as I'm reading this, I'm just going to speak for the both of us and say, Reese is not going to be a police officer.
Reese is not meeting those minimum eligibility requirements.
Jackson and Silas are also not going to be police officers.
Right. I'm okay with that.
Yes. But I also want to say there are some different aspects of this job that could potentially appeal to someone who is autistic in this specific case, like attention to detail for solving cases or just having a special interest in being a police officer. So if you can meet these requirements, then there's nothing, your diagnosis doesn't hold you back. There's no blanket no, you can't.
It's just like you have an astigmatism as long as you can meet the
medical or visual. Let me give you another example of this. In the before time, my husband really wanted to be a pilot in the Air Force. That was his dream. He didn't meet the vision requirements. So, my husband, without a developmental disability, it essentially, I hope that makes sense.
No, it absolutely makes sense. And when you were reading through that, I was thinking that this is really similar to, every student has the right to participate on any sports team. Right. Every student could try out for the football team. Will they make the eligibility requirements? Maybe not. Reese could try out. Is he going to make it? Probably not. But he still has the opportunity to try out just like everyone else and to meet the eligibility requirements just like everybody else. So
you summed up perfectly something that I'm going to explain in a little bit more detail.
Okay.
No, I really appreciate you saying that, because what's protecting you is Title I of the ADA, which applies to employers who have 15 or more employees. It prohibits the discrimination in recruitment, hiring, promotions, training, pay. It also requires that employees provide reasonable accommodations to the known physical or mental limitations of otherwise qualified, so they have to first be qualified, individuals with disabilities, unless it results in undue hardship, right? Like, reasonable accommodations. You might be asking, what are those?
What are those?
Thank you. Any modification to a job or the work environment that will enable a qualified applicant with a disability to participate in the application process or to perform essential job functions. Examples of these include reassigning non-essential job responsibilities to someone else, changing the layout of a workstation, or modifying equipment. Although more than half of all accommodations cost nothing, tax incentives are, in fact, available to help employers implement workplace accommodations. The last thing I want to say is just a caveat. I would not be doing my due diligence if I didn't also add that it is important for youth and families to understand that while the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, protects employees from being discriminated against on the basis of a disability, it does not require employers to hire an applicant with a disability if there is another applicant who is more qualified or just as qualified. Nor does the Americans with Disabilities Act protect employees with disabilities from being fired or laid off, as long as the dismissal is not based on the disability.
Wow.
So
we found a lot of
did you learn about extended school year?
I did.
Did you learn about neurofeedback?
A lot.
Did you learn about FDS, what you can buy with your budget?
Yep.
Did you get confirmation on whether or not an autistic individual could potentially be
Absolutely
a trooper?
Absolutely.
Then I did
your job.
My job.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone out there, for listening in. And know that if you are in Idaho or planning on moving to Idaho and have questions on systems or services for children with disabilities, please consider reaching out to us on our website at IPULidaho.org. That's IPUL Idaho.org, or by calling us at 208-342-5884. Be sure to tune in next time. Until then, this has been Unlimited Parenting.
Thanks for listening.